MashaAllah, thank you so much. And we've gotten some longer questions in the emails so far. So just starting with one of them, a sister is asking, can the Sheikh talk a little bit more about asbab and how that ties to predestination? I understand this to be that there is no such a thing as a coincidence in life, since everything is on iman, faith, to believe qadr. Is this correct? Then what is the role of dua in changing our condition and predestination? Also, is it okay for us to look back in our lives and reflect and learn from patterns we may see in our lives? And she says, I hope this makes sense. Am I correct in believing everything that happens in life is by the will of Allah? And while I remain steadfast in patience and continue to make dua, I also try to reflect upon / learn from the certain circumstances that Allah put in my path. So I know it was a lot at once, but.
No, it's a very good question. But action and dua and qadar, they are intertwined. And there's a very clean and crisp barrier between the two of them regarding our application of it. Number one is that our actions going forward, we have no business with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't know what the future holds. So nobody takes in actions, and we're not allowed to be taking actions trying to guess what is the will of Allah. We are commanded, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ وَقُلِ اعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. Say, do good, do actions. All right. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. Allah is praising Dhul Qarnayn. He took means. I want to attain this, therefore I need 1, 2, and 3, and I can attain result X. So we're commanded to do all of these things. We are commanded to make dua. For what? For what we desire. We're not commanded to live a passive life and just wait for things to happen to us and fall out of the sky or bump us and knock us down and say it's the will of Allah. You have no business ever mentioning the will of Allah when it comes to going forward in life. Where you mention the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is for everything that happens out of your control and everything that happened in the past. That's where you worry about the will of Allah, such as an unfortunate event takes place. How do I ease my pain? By saying it's the will of Allah. So Allah Ta'ala gave us this concept of Qada and Qadar is a way for us to soothe ourselves, because you truly could go into a deep depression. But Allah draws a line in the sand for us by saying Qada'ullah. It's Allah's Qada and Qadar. That's it. And if it's Allah's Qada and Qadar, there's a wisdom that's going to be born out of that. There must be a wisdom that's going to be born out of that. And you can reap the fruits of those wisdoms if you accept the past as the will of Allah Ta'ala. That is a tree that's planted and it will bear fruits in the future. Those fruits are wisdoms. No matter how bitter it was, if you accept it properly as the divine will, then there will be fruits. Now, I can accept it properly as either one of two ways. Either it's something totally out of my hands, that's the easy part, or it's my fault. Then from the fruits of that is to learn the lessons. I was sloppy in my accounting. I got nailed for $30,000 on my taxes. It's the will of Allah that I was a fool. That's the will of Allah. So what's the fruit of that? To take taxes seriously next time. That's the fruit of that. Maybe you'll take it so seriously, you'll save taxes in the future. And isn't that the reality of like most people's lives? That they make such a terrible mistake but once they realize, okay, it's the will of Allah, but it was the will of Allah that I made that mistake. So therefore they fix it not only for themselves, they fix it for dozens and hundreds of other people. Did not Malcolm X go to jail and do all those things that he did in the streets? But when he accepted that and he moved and he tried to seek the wisdom behind it, he went and he fixed and corrected and protected so many other people from that. Every child that's born poor and they hate it, they try to make sure their kids are rich. So things flip-flop from generation to generation, right? So you see, the will of Allah is never our business going forward. Going forward, we are told to use our brains, istikhara, istishara, dua, and tasabbub. That's what we're told to do, to be active. Act, take action, make decisions, seek Allah's bounty that's in this world. You have no business with the will of Allah. Will of Allah is in the past. or in the present. All right, that's an objectively we could see that's God's will for us. So we have to act upon it. Either it's my mistake that I learned from, or it's something totally out of my control. So I may be forced to fight back. I may be forced to flee, but I understand it is Allah's will. And if you understand that something's Allah's will, you don't become, it doesn't affect you mentally. And this is many oppressors, victims, the relationship. The victim may be misguided. The oppressor we know is misguided. But now many people are going to be surprised to hear this. The victim may be misguided. If the victim is constantly looking at the oppressor as an autonomous being who oppressed me, he's misguided. Yes, you're a victim. In this world, you deserve justice. In this world and the next, you're also misguided. You can be both at the same time. You're misguided. This oppressor of yours is nothing other than a tool to test you. It is a tool. And their wisdoms can be born out of this oppression. And benefit can be created out of this oppression. If you realize my oppressor is just a tool. He does not deserve this much attention. You have placed in a type of shirk almost, the oppressor in the middle of your life, and your entire mentality and emotion revolves around the oppressor. The entire worldview revolves around the oppressor. All of their time, thought, emotion, and energy revolves around the oppressor. You're making tawaf around your own oppressor. He already oppressed you once. Now he lives in your head and in your heart. The oppressor to us is nothing but a tool. He's come to us to reveal our weaknesses, our sins maybe. And to make us stronger, you can dig like a pearl diver to find all the wisdoms. So much so that the Sahaba at the end of their time, there are some narrations mentioning that they went and they thanked some people of Quraysh. It's like a random rare narration that I came that Bilal and went to Abu Sufyan. Oh, because of you, we learned sabr, we learned this, we got our sins forgiven, all because of what you all did to us. So we should be thanking you. You are the means by which we gained all this power. And I'll give you a real life